Understanding how leadership works can help you construct a route for the future, no matter where you are in your career. This podcast is here to help you get started and stay motivated. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Leadership Loading Podcast. Join our host, Jason McLaren, as he interviews experts and shares advice on how to pursue a better life using different tools, techniques, motivation, and encouragement. Because leadership is an uphill climb, this podcast will teach you the ideas, techniques, and process of becoming a transformative leader. This is the Leadership Loading Podcast. Leadership Inspired.
Hey everybody, it's Jason McLaren with the Leadership Loading Podcast. Today we're talking about leadership and the perfect business, and our guest today is Jason Grant. Jason is a podcaster, father, and the founder of the Automated Method. It's a path of the least resistance mentality and methodology that allows executives to spend more time focusing on building their business and less time managing the minutiae of it. He turns business operators into business owners, and I'm looking forward to this episode because just before the show, we were talking about some of this, and automation is just one of my key things I've been working on in my life. So I'm hoping he's going to bring some value to your life too. So welcome, Jason, to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Jason.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit, how you got into this and a little bit more about your background other than what we just talked about.
Well, I got a good one for you. So basically, every single time that I've done some sort of talk, right, or I've done like an event or whatever, I titled it based on some sort of historical, reasoning that I had in my life or business. And one of the more recent ones was addicted to shortcuts. So in technology, what I guess I'm really good at is operational shortcuts with technology, or as I will say, software. It's all software, right? And so if you were to find out who I am as a person, or if we find out who I am as a business owner, that's what I do. Day in and day out. I'm like, if there's a better way, faster way, shorter way, path of least resistance, well, then I do it, or I apply it, or I pay for it, right? And then that's my life. That gives me all the time in the world, right, to do deep work or spend time with my daughter, my wife, whatever, because I think that people don't realize how much time they could have if they did it right.
Definitely. And, with COVID, we're in year 2 now at the time of this recording of COVID. And so I think that's kind of brought even more meaning to it. And you mentioned the family aspect, people working remote and that sort of thing. So, with all that, how has the meaning of work and our relationship to it changed?
Like in terms of not just the financial side of work, we're talking about like what it means. Well, I mean, work-life balance is the number one thing on people's mind right now, right? Especially with remote work. Now, remote work, of course, has been around for as long as, say, any sort of technology. I would say that cloud technology has made it easier because you don't really have to change any settings on a computer. You just have to use a browser, et cetera. So that would be the reason why remote work got real popular, probably prior to the pandemic. Coincidentally, pandemic, COVID-19, remote work is now elongated, right? So the amount of time spent remote increased to months and months, a year, right? And so forth. And the balance is the thing now. Like, what are you doing? What is the value of what you're doing and who for? And that was because of quarantine pandemic. You got time to think, right? Think it through.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think they say you get more done doing remote than you do going into the office.
Well, here's the deal. I'm going to be honest. I'm always honest and transparent. I don't think so. I think that your ability to go off in a different direction unnecessarily without coworkers is probably where remote work does fall flat, because you don't have that camaraderie or that structure, corporate, that whole sharing experiences, in a workplace. And then in remote work, you can get distracted easily. Like, I mean, if you got time to do your laundry at 2 p.m., you might do it.
Yeah.
So that might be, the thing is deep work. Like, a lot of people that I speak to don't understand the difference between distracted work and deep work. So the first definition of work has to change. What is the definition of work to somebody? Is it meaning that you're engaged in a computer, like if it's digital? Or does it mean that you're undistracted doing something where for an hour and then, you jump back into the busy work side of things, or the distracted work, we'll call it. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
The language of work needs to change first before you can define work. If that makes sense.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah.
So in the relationship of work, how, with being into the business side of it now, what are the one things that business owners are doing wrong? If, you said like less than task oriented, more than quantity or
Yeah.
quantity over
Well, I mean,
quantity.
email is the offender, right? Like we mentioned before, I'd say that process and protocol are my two favorite things. Like if someone was to say, because I came from the world of IT, this is super easy. I came from the world of IT. So since I was 15, 16, I have been doing tech support, but that doesn't mean I've been doing it my whole life. But I mean, it travels with me, technical support. I would always find that if everything was written down, then tech support is useless, right? Because the person can solve the problem for themselves.
Right.
So that's also a protocol too, where you have somewhere to go for a solution instead of having to ask someone, right? So then there's the ask second, not ask first. So this is like simple things that business owners don't think of, right? They just basically stack everything together and they make a Franken system. And that Franken system does work, but protocol and process are things you could write down with a pen, and then you apply the software. So you figure out the workflow with a flow chart. And I would say most owners, probably higher than 95%, do not have their process documented with or without software, Jason, period.
Definitely.
And so if you're trying to make it better, what are you doing? You know what I mean? You can make a shortcut or a detour, right? We'll call it a detour at first because it's a muscle memory problem for them to move from one ecosystem to another. So if you do a shortcut, they're like, oh, well, why would we have to do that? And I'm like, you didn't know you could do that because you didn't have it documented before. So I would say from IT, I got really interested in operations. If anybody argues with me about the structure of how business is made, and they don't focus on operations, or they try to simulate it with the logistics and words like that, operations these days is how you can have an automatic business, period.
Definitely. And I, coming from the military side, we were talking earlier, everything's process, everything's standard operating procedure,
protocol.
everything has a manual.
It's amazing.
Coming into the business corporate sector, I was just amazed at how many companies don't have some kind of process procedure, for everyday tasks. Yeah.
Or how easy this is say you had an 8.5 by 11 and a Sharpie, and all you would have to do is, if you say you had the team members, we'll call everybody team, because that's also a word that needs to change. Don't say employee, don't say staff. So you have team members, and they're all like an avatar on an 8.5 by 11. Well, all you have to do is figure out what if, when, if this, then that, like statements, like at this time of the day, we do this, we engage this piece of software. If this piece of software, it goes to this piece of software. You just have to join bubbles and you have your whole business like mapped out just like that. You know what, that if you made that a PDF and you just put it on, some sort of resource that all your team can look at, well, they would now determine for themselves where there could be a bandwidth problem or a bandwidth, breaker in the flow without even asking. Like that whole send an email, CC everybody bullshit, that's got to go right away. And that, I think the reason why people do that is because of trust. So say, for example, you're using like something as easy as monday.com. And I love to push, sorry, Jason, I love to drop a lot of SaaS products, but I think monday.com is the easiest one to learn project management. And it's also the easiest one to manipulate project management, whether on your phone or in a web, right? And what I like about it is it teaches people that whole process of, you don't need an email, just have the interface as a tab open in Google Chrome, and you can see the things change, or you can manipulate them right there. Well, that's basically where every business's protocol breaks down, is that they use other technologies to ask when they should be checking on the interface of the dashboard themselves. Right. But a lot of owners don't trust that they're doing it, so they send an email as a reminder. But if you did have a team that liked working for you, I think that they would follow protocol if you outlined it. Like in your onboarding, like your HR, it would say, we have monday.com open as a Google tab all day. Do not close.
Right. I know, back to the email, when I send an email to a lot of people, I BCC everybody, because I just got tired of everybody. Because you send it to 150 people. Yeah, and true. Everybody's hitting reply all.
Yeah, you break the thread.
Yeah, so I just send it blind copy everybody. That way, when they hit reply, it only comes to me, and I can, if I need to send that out, I can filter it and forward it out to everybody.
I don't mean to be platform specific, but I would say when it comes to chat-based communication, if whatever, the world is a little messy right now. I'm sure that you're aware because of Google Workspace central tenant, Microsoft 365 central tenant, a hybrid of both, or maybe neither, which would make you align with Teams or with Google Meet or Hangouts or chat or what would be in Slack. So the reason why I promote Slack is because of Slack Connect. I'm sure you're aware of this, right? Because with Slack Connect, you can DM someone's email address in another ecosystem, in like another domain, and then they appear in your list if they're using Slack. Well, no, the convenience of that is you don't need email anymore for internal communication or for business-to-business communication, because Slack Connect is business-to-business. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So promoting that over email, no more BCC. Channel, right?
Right. That's like Microsoft Teams, I guess.
Yeah, Teams has got Teams, I think, is a little not as forward with this whole hashtag and @ chat. And like I said, Slack Connect. Everybody Google Slack Connect. You'll know what I'm talking about. Teams lacks that because it really forces you into Microsoft 365. Do you see what I mean? This is Slack kind of is universal. So it's all the internet instead of just, which is why email is so popular, right? Because you set it up, it works. But there's no protocol to control it. There's no protocol to control human behavior with email. There's no protocol. So everybody just uses it and they find tricks like you to make it work for you, but that's just you. Do you know what I mean? Someone else can just break that pattern because they don't follow your protocol with email. Well, there you go. They're just, projecting expectations, Jason. There you go. That's why the world's shit.
Yeah. So businesses that are doing everything right, what are they doing to make all these processes work well?
So rephrase it.
So like if you had to pick one thing that other businesses are doing as far as setting all their processes right, what are they doing right? And that makes them a winning business.
Well, the first thing is if you're building an ecosystem, okay? So let's say I call it your app stack. So every business is a bunch of apps that run together, and that's basically the model of your business. Try to ask as many questions about your market and your industry, whatever you're doing, and find a full stack that's natively integrated. Do you see what I mean? No square pegs, round holes. I don't care how brand aligned you are with something. In certain industries, better CRM, right? In certain industries, better accounting software. Actually, I would think there's only one. I'm a Xero user. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of QuickBooks Online. It does the job. A lot of people use it. But xero.com Xero is probably the biggest classic UX front out there. They're the ones that win. And so my business uses it. I try to push it on everybody, but say that's a financial application, cloud bookkeeping, cloud accounting, that might not be good in your industry. So you find your stack, right? And once you do that, if they're all natively integrated, then you've saved already 1,000 hours a week, for your whole team. Because everything, it's just a checkbox that says, if things happen here, we do it here. You don't need to use Zapier. I'm sure you know what that is too. Your audience will know. Right.
Yeah. So as the audience of this podcast is talking about the future, we're all trying to figure out, we're either building our business trying to build our business or get out of the whatever industry we're in and get into a different industry. What's the future of that look like? What do we need to be looking at, as entrepreneurs and getting into that?
Okay, so you're talking about any industry. How about like something that's synchronous or the same parallel in the entire on the entire Earth?
Right.
So it's easiest for me to consider the SaaS world. So software as a service. The SaaS world controls business, period. Right. Like, I mean, if I was to say, oh, you're going to build a website with some sort of integration with e-commerce, if you're not using Shopify, you're not using what you should be using. Right. There will be other ones. Yes, there are. I think that the most dynamic, and I'm not just pumping Canada, I think is Shopify. It's shown itself many different ways to be the leader to me. But you see how that does so you follow what they release. Okay. So like if you jump into like a CRM, for example, the best thing you could do as a business owner is find out what's coming next inside the SaaS product. Because that's your upper hand, that's your competitive edge, right? And they have usually listing, because they like to brag. Most of them are on the stock market. They want to brag about these feature releases that come out, all these new and advanced machine learning and artificial intelligence. Don't even get me started about that. But a business owner these days, it's not really a word. It's a word that I kind of made up that I've even talked to developers and engineers, software engineers of the SaaS world. and the C-suite of SaaS World, CEO, CTO, CIO, you name it, Jason. And they like it when I start to kind of make up lexicon. So one of the things I found out that they all do, they don't call it this, but it's auto flow. So auto flow is building workflows inside a SaaS product that already know you're using another SaaS product. Do you see what I mean? So so instead of them guessing with the native integration options, auto flow means if you got 5 apps, that's 5 Chrome tabs, and they're all working for you together, they're building AI and machine learning that are shortcuts because you're integrating certain apps, auto flow. So that means data just goes right across the whole stack, right? And then you can build these things inside their marketplace. So they have utilities to build these automatic workflows. I'm sure you've seen them. Which SaaS products off the top of your head, Jason? Give me like
our
in terms
organization
of
uses Square. We use Square, which integrates with like Printify.
Yeah.
And we're able to tie everything together on the back end that way. Yeah.
So have you seen anything in those, if you log in, that they probably have some sort of designer workflow application in there? Easiest, Monday.com has that too. So it's like you can create these little parameters, these automated, like assistants, we'll call them. They're little shortcut assistants inside for workflow. Like all the apps are doing that. So why would you not learn it? That means that they're figuring out how to delete all human intervention unnecessarily, right? Like if you really mapped it out, you're just basically watching, and it's like only things that will come to your attention are when it requires a human. That's it. Like make human decision. Okay, it's probably a yes or a no. Right?
Well, we've noticed that on our Printify for shirts. You know, you just make a shirt template.
Oh yeah, okay. That's why you use Square. I get it.
Every shirt you want to make, you just put the template on there, and then it automatically adds it to every shirt. Which automatically syncs to Square. So when somebody goes to our website and buys the shirt, and it automatically updates our Square site. So we don't have to upload to the shop. I think it's just a back way.
That's like what I would call the rudimentary of the integration.
Well,
right?
we're rudimentary departments.
But what I'm saying is like you say at 4:00 on Wednesday when Jason sends this task to like it's just it draws that out. So then that one memorized step that you manually did is now a macro. And the software does it for you. You see, that's what the SaaS world is doing. They're mimicking behavior so that they can start to delete these unnecessary drags and drops based on time or based on a value, whatever, and integer changes. You see, that's what I call pre-AI. When it's mimicking human behavior at a really childish level, but it's like, do it once. The software learns once, it doesn't have to learn again. Do you see what I mean? So that's why I really dig that stuff, because you really start putting it to work and you're like, wow, yeah, I have an extra 6 hours a day. You know?
There you go. Exactly. So how does all this tie into the automated method?
Like what does the automated method do?
Yeah. So you know, you're the founder. How do you use all this to build that program? Well,
I mean, it's an agency, right? So the easiest way to put what the automated method is, it's an agency of partners, and all the partners are app centric. So whenever we do a business design, which is either renovating an old business, which is bringing from traditional to full modern, what we basically do is we just interview the owner, find the industry, find the market, all the standard questions, and then model the business, actually provide the app stack, which is just recommendations of applications in that you would want for your perfect ecosystem. That's step one. Like, do you know how powerful that is? I've never had the ability, since this is some of these things are new prior to quarantine. During quarantine, I figured out how to scope a business better for small, medium. But what it does do is you can build the app stack, and before you launch, you can pull that CRM that ain't going to work, you know? And that's basically, so that's how the automated method comes in, is because it's a supervised agency to help the owner get to the right point.
Yeah, definitely.
And then just basically tighten all the bolts and have it as maximally efficient as possible. And that doesn't necessarily have to be automation. And I hate to go off on a tangent here, but I came up with remote departments, which is like remote work, but at the same time, a whole department. Because if you have a cloud bookkeeping service, why can't you have a cloud HR? Why can't you have a cloud lawyer? Why can't you have a cloud strategist, a cloud sales strategist? You see what I mean? So now you use fractionalized stuff like Upwork to find like a group of people that are all your remote departments at a fractional cost. So you can I can take we at the Automated Method can take an entire salary and split it up over a year and probably do 5 remote departments on retainer for the same cost.
Yeah.
You see, that's just crazy. So, and then also, guess how you all communicate? Slack Connect.
There you go. So it all worked out. All right. And so if you were stuck in an elevator, this is our trademark.
I love how you're going with these. They're great.
This is our trademark tip here. If you're stuck in an elevator, you got, 1 minute to tell somebody a leadership tip as you're getting down the elevator.
Yeah.
What would it be?
Don't let the greed machine control your business, for sure. Number one, for sure. Calculating salary, and especially at a pre-business, any point in the business's redesign or the business's growth or the business's scale or whatever, find out how much you can actually make and put the rest of the money into your business, right? For me, I know the exact day that I cut my salary in half. And I did it because I wanted to get out of just the IT world and I wanted to start consulting. So a lot of the things would change. You're going to lose 20% of your clients because they don't like the way the menu changed. I get it, and then, but the 80 that stay, they really, they're the ones that you should have in the beginning also. And then what happens is you also find yourself in a position where you can spend money on consulting. So all I did was use half of my salary to pay for consulting, to figure out a lot of the stuff I didn't know, and then just redesign the entire business. And it's then now you can scale for real instead of this false scale, I call it, which is where you're operationally, absolutely bandwidth broken. And it's the greed machine. You know why? This is the easiest part. Say QuickBooks, for example.
Right.
Even this in your accounting software. It'll ask you how to salarize yourself as an employee inside your own business, right? Now, the problem is, though, that it's taking into account that as a static number value per year. But your profit might change. Your revenue might change year to year. So business owners, what happens is they get locked in, say $150,000 a year, if that's some crazy number that they fucking made up. So they have $150,000 a year, but the next year they need to change things, but they didn't make as much profit. So what do? I'm still $150,000 a year. And I'm like, yeah, well, what about just for 1 year, do 100? That never happens.
Yeah.
Never. They get too accustomed to this lifestyle. And I'm like, yeah, but you do 1 year of that and then you might have 400% revenue. But that's the greed machine, man.
Instead of setting it a percent of profits or something.
Or some sort of commission-based strategy with you in a holdings company. I don't care. But the problem is people get in business and they can be accidentally successful entrepreneurs. And they just think that that's what their value is in their business now. So if I get 1 minute in an elevator, I'd say, make sure you understand that you can pay yourself less and your business can increase huge,
Definitely.
Huge.
Definitely.
5 times.
Yeah. I think if you follow anybody on social media now, you got Graham Stephan and all them, they could pay themselves a lot more, but they put it into investments and that sort of thing. But that's
you got to scale, right? Scale is the problem. And I have many friends that said this to me before I got into this other, into the next version of the Automated Method. I would say version 2, where we are now, the final one, the one that I promote. The idea of, they would always warn me, and they've done it. They said, make sure you can scale. Make sure you can scale. I know that's an operations game. It's finding people. It's an operations game. It's a financial game. Yes. But if you don't know how to make that perfect, you got to get help. That's where we come in, so that you can, because the last thing you want to do is work 400% for the same money. You see, that's what'll happen. If you do become accidentally successful, you will be doing 400% your labor for the same salary.
Right.
And you won't know how to get out of there, because you can't stop. You can't press pause on reality and then be like, I wish I would have made these decisions. You just basically work till 8, 9, 10 p.m. Right?
Definitely.
I would never, since I became a father, I would never do that. I'm out.
I'm the same.
Know?
All right. So tell us how we can find you if we want to find out more about Automated Method, or just get a hold of you on social.
Well, I did the due diligence of breaking LinkedIn. I can't add any more connections. So, but that's good for the Google optimization, because if you just type in Jason Grant, it'll come up in Google. That's cool. Number one, I got that one under control. Or social media, it doesn't matter. But I like to advertise Zapier a little bit here. So and I also like to teach people that email is not an email. It's a function. And it doesn't have to be human, right? So like it could be an operator inside a formula. So start at theautomatedmethod.com is a starting point email address that runs through Zapier. So it basically grabs your email, grabs a display, sends an automatic reply, puts you into HubSpot, activates you as a lead inside this. And there's a whole bunch of cool things that it does, but I'm not Jason at theautomatedmethod.com or start at theautomatedmethod.com. Those are bots.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to say, how do you communicate with Jason? Well, I mean, first off, software will communicate with you, then me.
There you go. Well, that gets it started, like you said.
Yeah. Zapier is awesome. If you have the time to learn it, it's zapier.com. I'm sure you've heard of it or you use it. It's a game changer.
Well, thanks, Jason. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah. Thank you.
And we didn't get confused with the two Jasons. I think you're the first Jason I interviewed.
I didn't even notice.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, I'm just talking to Jason.
There are thousands of leadership and management podcasts to choose from. We're glad you chose the Leadership Loading Podcast, a Go Heroes production. If you'd like to support Go Heroes Inc., visit www.goheroes.org. And with that, it's time to wrap up today's show. Thank you so much for listening. We sincerely hope you liked it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your family and friends. Let's all grow together. Thanks for listening to the Leadership Loading Podcast. Leadership inspired.